Hi, good evening, and welcome to the INFocus Candidate Forum. My name is Paul Whitty, with board member, Chamber of Commerce, and with me is Melissa Vance, president of the Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce. Tonight we're going to be speaking with the mayoral candidates, and tonight's event is sponsored by WCTV and the Wayne County Chamber of Commerce and the Western Wayne News.
Well, good evening. It's so nice to have you all with us. We're doing just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. We want to let you know that in-person absentee voting, or early voting, as many of us know that by, is now open, and there are locations that you can go and vote now. Those locations and dates and times change a little bit, so check out the clerk's website for all the details on where you can go vote. We hope that you will exercise your right to vote in this election and every election for that matter. In addition, election night is November 7th. We will be right here on the IU East campus live and providing coverage. Again, compliments of WCTV and Western Wayne News, and then the Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce. And we hope that you will tune in and join us for that. And then lastly, the Chamber is hosting a meet and greet for your elected officials. And that is for Chamber members only, but it is on November 14th at Forest Hills Country Club at 5:30. And we invite those of you that are involved in area businesses and working for area businesses to come on out and have an opportunity to shake hands and meet newly elected officials. With that, I think we're going to get started, Paul.
Yep, going to introduce our candidates. We have Ron Oler, we got Mayor Dave Snow, we got David Batman Carpenter, and Howard Price. So I'm going to start with you, Mayor. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you are running for mayor, seeking re-election.
Yeah, thank you, Paul, and thank you, WCTV. Thank you to all of you for viewing tonight and staying engaged in this very important election. When I ran for mayor, I really presented to this community a strong and detailed vision for what I wanted to bring to Richmond, and I've spent the last 8 years bringing that vision to life. As I sit before you tonight here in this forum, we've had $631 million invested in our industrial park, $300 million this year, which is a record-breaking year, $92 million invested in our infrastructure. We're on the cusp of a landmark investment in our downtown because of the projects we've been doing there and the money we've been investing. We've seen 1,000 new jobs created, unlocked a 10-year pay freeze to our employees, particularly in our first responder departments, and seen pay increases go to the bottom line of our entry-level first responders. So there's a lot of successes that I'm excited to share with you tonight, but more importantly, expand on that future vision for how we're going to create even more success in the years to come. So I just appreciate you being engaged, taking the time to watch this forum and listen to these candidates and really make a decisive and informed decision on how you vote this election season and on November 7th. So thank you for having me here tonight.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Oler, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're seeking election.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul, Melissa, WCTV, and Western Wayne News for giving us all the opportunity to be here tonight. And as Dave said, thank you, viewers, for watching. I hope you're out there watching. I'm Ron Oler, a lifelong resident of Richmond and Wayne County. I have almost 3 decades of experience supervising people, managing teams, leading successful departments, delivering amazing products and services to individuals and businesses also. I look forward to serving as mayor, and I'm running for mayor because I believe that Richmond is at the precipice of either becoming something greater than it's ever been or something worse. So I will work tirelessly to ensure that Richmond's best days are ahead of it.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Price, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running for mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, you probably don't know a whole lot about me other than maybe the signs that you've seen around town, but I'd like to thank you for tuning in tonight. And I'd like to emphasize that you go out and vote. I'd like you to vote for me, but I want you to go out and vote. That's the most important thing. We have elections where there's very low turnout. I would like to see 5, even 10,000 people go out and vote. It's probably not going to happen, but let's go out and vote. I'm a Richmond resident now. I've been here for 6 years. I grew up here in Richmond, went through the high school system, Went to Purdue University, got a degree in engineering, then went off to the Air Force. I'm an Air Force pilot. I flew B-52s, T-37 trainers, did some engineering work over at Wright Pat. Picked up a master's degree in aeronautical engineering, picked up a master's in business. After I got out of the Air Force, stayed where I retired at, was a simulator instructor for quite a while. But decided to come back because Richmond's really my home. The thing I would like to do for Richmond is to clean up the environment, okay? That covers a lot of areas, not just trash or blight, but drugs, police enforcement, blight, those kinds of things. I'd also like to make government a little more responsible than what I think it is right now. I've had trouble getting hold of people, attending meetings, things like that. And if I think we can do those two things, we can bring a lot of job opportunities here to Richmond for the future. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Carpenter, tell us a little about yourself and why you're running for mayor.
Yes, thank you, and good evening, everybody. So the reason I'm running for mayor is to try to do everything I can to help our city. In 2020, when you couldn't find toilet paper, I bought hundreds of dollars to give away for free. Later that year, I started dressing up as Batman to give a positive influence in the COVID season. Last winter, I did two things. I shoveled the complete Richmond Avenue Bridge, both sides, 2,000 feet of sidewalk myself to give a clear path to citizens. Plus, during the negative 4-degree temperatures out there, I saved 8 people from the cold. Then in the spring of this year, I swept the bridge, picked up the trash, and tried to really engage and clean up our community and listen to all of your concerns. And one concern I think that we all are looking for the answers for is that fire that happened in April. We're still waiting to hear how it got started, and we need to work on how to prevent things like that from reoccurring. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, the next question that we're going to ask is, what has prepared you for this position of mayor, and how can you leverage your past experience for this position in the greater good of Richmond? So Ron, we're going to start with you this time.
Okay, thank you. Like I mentioned in my introduction, I have almost 30 years of experience supervising teams, managing large groups. First career in broadcast engineering. As a certified broadcast engineer, I led multi-million-dollar projects around the world, built large radio and TV stations, Voice of America station in Africa, worked at the Voice of Free China in Taiwan. A lot of good experience there, managing teams. After that, I spent 21 years in higher education as a professor, a department chair, a dean, managed 2 college campuses, actually finished building the Rushville campus, a nice, beautiful facility in Rushville. Very successful. Normally, my normal span of control was 10 to 12 people, but there was times during the Great Recession where I directly supervised 42 people and another 100 indirectly. So I've had a lot of experience managing large budgets. And since then, since leaving the college in 2020, I've been working in the construction industry as a project manager, back to managing large construction projects and leading teams to be successful in creating new opportunities for everyone, for businesses and citizens.
Thank you,
Oh,
Ron.
one more thing. On the personal side, personal finance, I'm a Dave Ramsey Master Financial Coach, so I help people get out of debt, help people save for retirement, and help people in retirement manage their finances. So I have a lot of experience in finance.
Great. David, we're going to come back to you for this one. What's prepared you for this position, and how are you going to leverage that for your new role?
Well, I did in-depth research about many topics that is a concern to our citizens, and I think I don't have per se the aspect of experience for this job because this is my first time doing anything political, but I'm a very caring person. I listen to citizens. I try to address all their concerns as they come in and just try to be very thorough on trying to find solutions to all of our problems.
Great, thank you. Howard, how about you?
Well, I think my Air Force career has helped me a lot to get prepared for this job. I've managed millions of dollars worth of training with students, managed civilian employees, simulators. I developed programs for our profiles on simulators. All of that kind of works into attention to detail. You've got to have attention to detail. The small things add up and eventually they're going to count. So the Air Force career has really helped me out quite a bit. Since I've been home, I've been volunteering around the community, doing things like that. So I have some feel for what's going on with the community, and I think that helps me out in starting off as a mayor if I get to that position.
Thank
That's
you.
it.
Dave?
Yeah, thank you, Melissa. You know, there's a lot I could unpack in that category, but I would say most importantly in the time frame given. First of all, I've lived here my entire life. This is the city that raised me and made me the person that I am. I'm very proud of this city. I'm very proud of the people of this city. I'm very passionate about this community and how it moves forward. And in the last 8 years as mayor, you've made a huge investment in me to grow in that position, to bring as much investment and opportunity as possible to this city. And I've taken that duty very seriously. As I was speaking about earlier, in job creation and investment in the industrial park and the infrastructure investment. And so the experience that I've had comes through that day-to-day work in the job and always being accountable and present with you. You've seen me frequently all about this community, and in the moments when I've had to represent Richmond, I've done so with the respect and dignity that you deserve. Also, though, through that work, it's very, very important that we talk about the collaborations and the partnerships that are built. I have represented Richmond in Japan twice, to all of our major investors overseas and to our sister city in Japan. I've built relationships abroad and relationships here across Indiana into the governor's office and locally with our partners at the county level and regionally, like with the EDC. So those partnerships are very, very important, and those partnerships are what's going to secure the next big chapter of investments and growth that we're going to see moving forward in the next 4 years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Howard, gonna start with you with this next question. So, and this question is going to be for everybody, but what are 2 to 3 priorities you believe are important facing the city of Richmond in the next 4 years?
Well, as I've tried to emphasize in my campaign, that I think the environment is one of the main priorities that we have to look at. We have a lot of just little things like trash strewn out through the city in our parks, a lot of litter. We don't have enough code enforcement, I think, on blighted houses, squatters, those kinds of things. It's been a long time since I've heard anything about drug enforcement or drug raids. We really need to get rid of the drug dealers. If you get rid of the drug dealers and don't have people coming here peddling drugs, that will hopefully solve a lot of the drug problem that we might have here in Richmond. The other thing that I've campaigned on is more responsiveness. I've tried to contact certain people, and I just had no success in getting answers at times. I've gone to boards and commissions, and sometimes I show up and they're just not there. There's no message on the door that we're not having it. It's hard to get a hold of an agenda if you're wanting to know and go to a board and find out what the agenda is. Sometimes the agenda's not there. Even minutes aren't there. I tried to get online and report a pothole the other day. It took me quite a while to find out where that was. And also, once I got there and filled the thing out, big error message. So I did something wrong. I thought I did everything right, but we need to have a little bit better on the website on being able to get a hold of people, being able to get a hold of the person that's responsible for doing something so that they can respond to you as a citizen. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Howard. David, what are 2 to 3 priorities facing the citizens of Richmond and the city of Richmond in the next 4 years?
Well, we have homelessness. I think that's one thing that needs to be addressed. We also need to work on the infrastructure of our city, and also the budget, balancing it, and also gaining revenue without raising taxes. And so I have structured some things here that if I don't have the opportunity to directly share, I'm more than happy to share after this forum ends. But also lowering crime rate. That is another big concern. Everyone wants to feel safe. And I think there's certain areas within all those that has not fully been addressed. And I think the city deserves to have positive changes made. Thank you.
All right. Dave.
Sure. Thank you, Paul.
Yep.
You know, this is a category where I sit in stark contrast of my opponents here. I think we live in a beautiful city, and I think our departments work really hard to provide quality services to you. I don't think that our code enforcement department's failing. I think they're working very hard to use the code to clean up the city appropriately. I don't think our police department's failing. I think they're closing drug houses. As a matter of fact, I know they are in record numbers because I have the data. And they're doing their part to keep crime off of our streets, and we're seeing a reduction in that through intelligence-led policing. And I can appreciate some of the comments about the smaller things that are day-to-day, and we're always working to improve. But as we sit here today with $300 million this year in our industrial park, and on the cusp of the largest investment downtown, what everybody should be focused on if taking this job is how to come in next year and make that even bigger. And those things don't equate to that large of an investment. So as we look at the top priorities for next year, first of all, it has to be investment and opportunity for you. The more investment we bring into this community, the more dollars we bring in, which brings more population, brings higher and better services to you so that we can serve you to the best of our ability. And that's what we're going to continue to aim to do. So I'm not going to tell you that I feel like our departments are floundering or failing, because they're doing an excellent job. And they do that in partnership with so many of you and your organizations. So I believe in our city, I believe in our departments, and I believe in the work that you do that keeps Richmond on the rise and keeps us looking great. So I'm excited for what the next handful of years brings, because we are right on the edge of a very exciting chapter in our story.
Hey, Ron. And that is true. To continue what Dave said, we're on the edge. We have some incredible dollars coming into the city from HELP, Ready 1.0, Ready 2.0, some ARPA dollars. We have the opportunity to make some major improvements downtown, but one of the things we got to do is we got to turn over those properties quickly. We got to get them back into the private investors' hands. So I want to focus on public safety and housing. Public safety, it's not a secret that our police department is down 20%, 14 officers, except we just hired 6 new officers, but it'll be next Christmas before they're more than just ride-alongs when they go through the police academy. So we really need to level up the police department. We're asking our fine men and women of the police department to work so many overtime hours. We've got to reach out there and find a way to attract new men and women of integrity for the police department and even the fire department. I talked to some of the engineers and some of the technicians at the fire department. Several of them said the last 6 years I've worked 800 hours of overtime. I want to be with my family. We got to hire up the fire department too. We got to right size and bring more people in and get out there and recruit the right people for these 2 areas. Our people should feel safe no matter where they are, downtown, in their homes, in any district. And right now they don't. I mean, we have enough officers patrolling, but we've got detectives on every ship because we need more just patrol officers. So definitely look forward to working with our police department and leveling them up and fire department. Back on the housing, we need more. Everybody's read the housing study. We need more middle class and even some low cost housing. Some people online will say we have enough low-cost housing, but I'm not sure we do. The city and the county are working on a matching grant to bring in some new townhomes in the north side of town, and that'll help in some of the low-cost affordable housing. But we have developers coming in and want to develop these properties, and I look forward to partnering with private developers in a public way to provide the public infrastructure to get these housing units built. We have professionals coming in to Reed Hospital who don't live here. Reed has 400 staff members that don't live in Richmond, that live in Ohio, because we don't have enough housing for them here. So we have an opportunity to fix that. Once we fix that, once we can fix the housing, Richmond will be a much better place.
May I offer an additional comment to that in a 60-second rebuttal form?
Yes.
Ron, you speak about the housing, and you said the city and the county are working on that. So those are initiatives I'm currently working on, and we've made great progress in that department. But one question that about a comment you made just before that, because a lot of people have asked me this. You say you support our police department, you're wearing the blue line flag, but you tend to, in your verbiage, kind of throw them under the bus and say crime is bad in the city, we need to level them up. They don't have
No, they need more officers and more equipment. So 12 years ago, I started a program with the former mayor and controller on how to buy 8 police cars a year, and we continue to do that. So some initiative already started. We also found money for new rifles and new vests. Those are all things that I started a long time ago. And Council, and you've done that. We both worked really hard to make
We
sure that our
bought
men and
50
women.
new cars,
Yeah,
absolutely.
make sure our men and women have.
So,
the
so are they
equipment
doing a good job
They're
and
doing
making
a great
a safe
job,
city, or
but,
aren't they?
But they're tired and there's too much overtime. They're really stressed, and I'm really worried that more problems are going to happen. When you have a police officer who's working 12-hour shift and then another 6 hours, it's very dangerous for them and dangerous for us. We need to go out there and find a way to hire more police officers. My work in higher education, I'll go to colleges and universities, something that RPD has never really done well. The Sheriff's Department came and recruited people, Customs and Border
That's
Patrol
throwing
came
them
and
under the bus again.
No,
You're
no,
saying
I'm
they
just-
haven't done it well. You're saying it
That's-
again. I mean, are they doing
Things
a
they
good
can
job?
do better. They need to
Okay,
recruit better,
okay.
yes.
I just,
They
that's
need
an
to hire
important
better.
clarification.
They're doing a great job, but we just need to help. We need to help them hire up, do everything we can to hire them. That's got to be a first priority.
But
Let's
don't
get
you think it
full
already
staff.
is?
I don't know. They're down so many
Okay.
officers.
Yeah.
I'm
but obviously
confident that it's a
Yeah.
priority.
Well,
And
this-
you know,
whatever's
I just think
working,
it's important
it's not
to
working
be
'cause they're
solid in
so
the stance
low
on
and-
it.
Yeah, this may come up again, so we may
Sure.
have some more
Sure,
time to get that. But for equal time, Howard and David, do you have anything to comment in regards to?
Well, the
Police.
feedback I've been getting is it's a problem. There's just not enough officers to go around. Patrols are thin around the city. It's not safe to go to that parking garage downtown. They don't want. My wife's been told, hey, you don't want to be downtown when it's dark. It's a problem.
So I just want to
That's what
throw in,
I've
I've had the police department pull the entire call log for the parking garage, and it doesn't reflect those statements. So I'm not
what
going to
I've
throw our
heard,
police
Dave.
department under the bus and say that their data is incorrect, because their data is correct.
You can say
I
anything
can't-
you
I have full
want, but
confidence
what
in
I'm
that.
saying is that's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
we
That's
got to
all-
make sure that
that's
our
all
viewers
I'm
are properly
saying.
informed by the
you.
collected data as it's presented.
Well, I would have
which
people
is
call
available to the public.
FOP or talk to police officers off duty and see what they have to say about it, because they're there, they're doing the job every day.
Is that advice you're giving to me?
And I would
Okay.
give them, I would talk to them.
I do talk to them, Howard. I talk to them.
I
quite
didn't say
frequently.
you weren't
Yeah,
talking
okay.
to them.
I was going to
I
say.
would say the
Yeah.
public
The w-
needs
yeah.
to talk to them.
Sure.
Yeah.
And
We-
then
we
they'll
as-
find out
yeah.
what the real deal is, regardless of what you believe, what Ron believes, what I believe.
It's not what I believe,
what
Howard.
they
It's the
believe.
data.
Okay.
It's the
So
data
David,
from our
is
call
there
log.
anything you want to add?
I think one improvement to our department, the police department, could be such as adequate body cameras. Not entirely sure if they have them or not, but I mean, overall, I think our police department does do a good job. You know, they work hard, they risk their lives for us. So I think overall, our police department's good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So we appreciate the comments and the conversation. We appreciate the fact that our viewers get a chance to hear from all four of you and really make informed decisions. So thank you for being here. We do want to continue moving forward, but I want to remind our viewers that if you have a question that you would like to ask our candidates, you can go to Facebook and pose your question. That's the best way to do it. There are other ways to do it that have been flashing up on the screen periodically, but we highly encourage your questions to come in as well, and we'll be listening for those. We may not get to all of them, just so that you know that, but we will do our best to answer some of those this evening. So, good segue to a comment that you made a few minutes ago, Ron. The next question is about the Hoosier Enduring Legacy Program, commonly called HELP. And I'm going to start with you, Howard, on this one. Talk about the proposed projects through that HELP program and how they'll benefit our community, and then how can we leverage those projects for additional growth and really grow the quality of place.
Well, first of all, I've got to ask you, can you tell me what those projects are?
There is a strategic investment plan that lists out all of those projects, and they've been approved by county council and some of the smaller towns in and around the county that have participated, and that is on the agenda for Monday's council meeting, Monday evening. So maybe we'll give you a chance to circle back and answer that after some of the other questions if you'd like.
Well, yeah, I'm pretty much ignorant about the HELP program. I do believe that anything that helps the communities or volunteers. We need volunteers. It's woefully inadequate. I volunteer to clean up parks and stuff when they have those programs. Size of Richmond, you'd think there'd be 20, 30 people out there.
Yeah.
You'd be lucky to get 10. So if that's a volunteer or money coming in,
This
we
is
need more
about
of
the
it.
allocation of the American Rescue Plan dollars that have come to all of the government entities over the last few years through the COVID relief fund.
Oh, the COVID relief fund?
Yes.
Well, the COVID relief fund should be helping the small businesses, I believe, because that's probably where most people were hurt. We don't need it, I don't think, to be balancing budgets or anything like that. We need to get that directly into the business community. That would be my point.
Thank you. David?
Yes, I'd have to agree with Mr. Price that small businesses of our community are very important. I can't exactly give context into your question because I don't have enough information to adequately assess the question, but I am more than willing to research it further in depth and come back at a later time to all the viewers at home.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Sure. Thank you, Melissa. Yeah, I hope that our viewers are engaged with the HELP program and the projects within the strategic investment plan. I've put together a huge presentation outline for Monday's meeting. We are going to talk about hiring a company to come in and do an assessment of our animal welfare to see how we can best serve the animal welfare of the community. We're going to see a big investment for our downtown business owners. We're going to see an investment in the Gorge Activation Plan, which is really exciting in getting people connected back to our water downtown. It's something that we've wanted to do for a very long time, and this is going to bring a really big investment in that direction. We're going to see a remodeling of the the Rose Garden, E.G. Hill Rose Garden. There's some really, really exciting projects in the strategic investment plan, but it goes right back to what I said in my opening statement is this isn't singular. The city plays a big role in this, but it's a partnership, it's a collaboration. So at Monday's council meeting, Commissioner Plasterer is going to be a part of that presentation and other community leaders and stakeholders that are going to help unpack some of those projects and what they mean to the community. One that I'm most excited about, because we were just talking about our police department, there's some dollars that are in there directly for our police department. I'm going to pass this over to candidate Oler, and I know he's probably going to talk about it, he's probably planning on it. At our last meeting, he led a motion to deappropriate some of those funds, and then Monday when we come back, we have to work to appropriate those funds as part of the resolution that's been created as a resolution of support for that strategic investment plan. So we're joining all of the surrounding townships that have also shown their support. So it's an exciting endeavor, and it's an opportunity to partner with the county and the state in a big way and show that Richmond is ready to receive and utilize big investment, and that's what's exciting about it. So please tune in Monday. Council starts at 7. It'll be here on WCTV, and you'll see a really robust presentation on all the projects. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Ron, you mentioned the HELP program
HELP program,
earlier,
yes.
and tell us about your projects that
there
you're
are either
excited.
53 or 56 projects in the city and the county, and some in the county are parks. There's lots of interesting things, but the city's three main focuses are public safety, downtown, and then an animal welfare study. So I believe in all those, and all those are great things that need to happen. There's quite a bit of dollars in there that has a chance to really revitalize our city if spent appropriately and it's spent properly. Dave mentioned that I deappropriated some funds. He had 2 line items in our 2024 budget, and all we know is that he had $806,000 in one that says he's going to use his matching grants for downtown, but nothing specific, nothing clear. And what I did is, whoever the next mayor is will have to come to council next year and say, we're going to do this building, we're going to spend this much money, and this is how we're going. It's the same way the county does it. So we're changing the way the city council is a fiscal responsible agent for the city, even though the mayor and administration create the budget. So the mayor will just have to come and say, I'm going to fix this building, and here's how much we're going to spend. If we had just passed it as it was, the mayor, even if it's me, would have an $800,000 slush fund to spend any way they want because there was nothing attached to it. Now it'll have to come ordinance by ordinance to spend it dollar by dollar, including the Bearcat for the police department is in there. So when they're ready to buy a Bearcat for the police department, the mayor will come and say, hey, we want to spend this money. It's in there. The money's in there. We just unappropriate it, so it's not an automatic expenditure that the mayor has the power to just, it's not a blank check to the mayor, and it shouldn't be that way. The county doesn't do it that way. Most other cities in Indiana don't do it that way. So we're stopping a practice that started in Richmond maybe 20 years ago of giving the mayor free reign on some of these dollars to where they has to come back to council, who is fiscally responsible for these tax dollars. These, at the end of the day, are tax dollars. These are tax dollars, and the council is responsible to taxpayers. There you go.
Thank you.
And I don't disagree with the tax dollar part. However, we will get a big presentation on Monday about how each of those will be spent, and then an ask of a resolution for support. So I would hope that we would see that support, and then the ordinance will. Now, all of that was already in motion before the motion was made to deappropriate, so we'll have to deal with that on Monday night.
Well, the ordinance will take several meetings to happen.
Oh yes, the
won't
public
pass
hearing
immediately,
isn't even advertised until
right.
November. Yeah.
So it'll be
Yeah.
a long time. It'll be a while before
Right.
you hear the ordinance for
Right.
appropriation.
Thank you. Heard a lot about quality of place improvement. And what I'm going to touch on is another initiative that hasn't been implemented yet regarding quality of place. And currently, we're the only county, and or there's cities within these counties that have implemented this, on the I-70 corridor east from Putnam County, which is west of Indianapolis, that has the ability but hasn't implemented a food and beverage tax. Estimates are around $2 million a year could be generated for quality of place initiatives, with a good portion of the revenue generated coming from those who travel through and to Richmond. So my question to you regarding the food and beverage tax is, are you supportive of the tax? And if so, how would it be administered for accountability and transparency? And David, I'm going to start with you on this.
Yes, I am in full support of the food and beverage tax. And for me to further answer your question, I'd have to look at how it's structured, of the limitations of it, to know how to accurately appropriate it as it's supposed to be. Now, for the accountability part, I'd have to look at the process of how they are held accountable to make sure everything is as it's supposed to be, to complete transparency to the public.
Okay. Ron, I'll bounce it over to you.
Okay.
So are you in favor of that?
I'm not interested in any new taxes, especially during these high inflationary times and high interest rates. Our families are struggling. Families don't need to be burdened with a new tax. And honestly, we have so many federal and state dollars coming in, we really don't need it. We've got enough money to do so many of these new initiatives. I don't see a need for it. So I'm opposed to any new taxes, especially during these times.
Okay. Howard, what's your thoughts on it?
Well, I don't like to see any new taxes. I'd like to see it as a referendum on the people that are being taxed. I mean, if they think it's okay and they're willing to pay for it, that's fine. But if they're not, who am I to say that, yeah, we're going to do this and you're going to pay, you're going to have this extra burden on yourself.
Okay.
So if it's up to me, I'm going to make sure that they have a vote on it. I wouldn't automatically do it.
Okay. Well, just for clarification, it is a use tax for anybody that travels to and from and or lives or dines or prepared food. So just clarification.
Okay. I understand that, but it's still here in this area, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Dave?
Thank you, Paul. I have a strong opinion of the food and beverage tax. We've had many, many discussions about it in my office. So the first thing we need to do is understand that no one sitting in this room tonight will have a vote on whether or not that passes. That's a legislative decision, not a decision of the executive branch. And so the executive branch can have an opinion and relay that opinion to the legislative branch, but it is the legislative branch that will vote and make the decision ultimately. Our Indiana legislature has provided several tools to municipalities that they can or can't use to increase their revenue. You know, we live with property tax caps that have a huge effect on our budget. So when we talk to the state government and we say, this is millions of dollars that we lose out of our revenue, the state legislature will often say, but you have these tools at your disposal if you choose to use them. Food and beverage is just one. There's wheel tax, there's street tax, there's several. As we look at a food and beverage tax, yes, it's a use tax. It's on pre-prepared foods. Now, my concern with it is twofold. One, you have areas of the city that are like in a food desert, like on the south side, like near South 13th, where there used to be a grocery store, right by where my grandmother lives. A lot of individuals in that neighborhood now rely on the quick marts that are nearby, and that is full of pre-prepared foods. So they're going to get hit along with people that are choosing to dine out. So I don't agree with collecting the money to see how it can be spent. I'd be much more in favor of providing a favorable opinion to the legislative branch of finding a project that benefits everybody in the city, particularly those that may have to pay it not by choice, right? Not by self-selection. And if that project would benefit them and the food and beverage tax could pay for that project, then I see that being a win-win. But if we can't provide that project and that promise, then we shouldn't impose that upon people that are not self-selecting to pay that tax for the food that they have to go buy. That's my very strong opinion of the food and beverage tax. And if it's not the right tax for us, that's not to say we can't look at others. We can take that step back and look at the whole toolkit that the legislature provides us and see if there are one of those that might fit better to serve the whole community.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great, thank you. The next question is, we've seen the growth in the Midwest Industrial Park over the last few years, but we've seen a steady population decline, more than 3,000 people in the last couple decades. How do we leverage our industrial economic growth to increase or stabilize our population? So Dave, I'm going to throw it right back to you and let you start this one off.
Yeah, it's a huge question. So we often talk about population decline as though it's a 5 or 10-year-old problem. We actually did some research at City Hall and pulled this up. The first census that noted a population decline for Richmond was 1970, and it has been a slow trickle ever since. And so we're constantly trying to attract a problem that's decades old. As Melissa said, we've seen huge investment in the industrial park. So how do we attack that and create more investment, bring more population, with some big anchors into our industry? Well, we just purchased 360 acres of new land. We want that to be a real anchor site. So we are working right now. I just had a meeting earlier this afternoon, a couple hours ago, about putting high capacity sewer under that property. And we are figuring out now how we're going to fund that very large project. We're also going to work with Richmond Power and Light to provide high capacity power. So once we have high capacity discharge and high capacity power at this shovel-ready site, and when I say high capacity, I mean higher than some large companies can find at almost any other location around the country. It's going to put us on a very short list for some very big anchor businesses that could land right there in the industrial park. So while we're working on that piece, we're also working on the livability piece. We have a contract with a company called TMAP, or Make My Move. They are marketing Richmond nationwide, and that's been very successful so far. We are providing incentives to get people to move here, and we're putting livability pieces in place for them to live in downtown, live in the Depot District, find new housing in the housing gaps that we have from the housing study that's in front of us. So we're attacking this on all fronts. And that's why you're seeing such a big investment in infrastructure and a brand new $21 million bridge come in and all these other exciting things, because we're setting the stage. 5 years from now, Richmond is going to be in a very different place than it is now, and it's very exciting. So I think we're going to see some big success on the opportunity, economy, and livability and population front just in the next few years to come.
Great, thank you. I'm gonna jump across the room and come back to David on this side.
Well, I think one thing that needs to improve is engaging the youth, because after all, they are the future of our community. I feel like we kind of overlook it sometimes, and I think that's a big concern. And also, Richmond has to be affordable in many ways for people who want to come to our community. And I think there's many improvements that we still have to work on, our infrastructure and other aspects. But for us to really make improvements, I think the biggest concern is to actually hear what the citizens have to say and take in their input, so we better know how to address these problems.
Thank you. Howard?
Well, one of the things that I've seen is that we have a hard time keeping our own children or people coming out of high school or even college coming back here to Richmond, because we just don't have the jobs that will sustain a family. There was a meeting about the working poor, and it was like 18 out of 24 families here in Richmond if you've got 5 members in your family, you're working 2 jobs and maybe you're going to a food pantry. So I think, yes, the industrial park is very good. It's very promising. If it were me, I would try and, they talk about a tech corridor from Indianapolis up to Lafayette. Well, I don't know why we can't have a tech corridor from Richmond to Indianapolis. So I would try and reach out with all I could to get Purdue, IU to come through and help us out, get these high-tech jobs, have programs in place at the high school that would funnel those people through the colleges and back to Richmond and stop the population decline of people leaving Richmond because there's nothing here for them.
Thank you. Ron?
We've had great success with the Economic Development Corporation of Wayne County. Our viewers may not know that it's funded by your tax dollars. The city and the county jointly fund that through the edit tax dollars that we collect on salaries of people who live and work in Richmond and Wayne County. So all these new properties, all these new plants, all these new manufacturers, and all these jobs are great, wonderful, excellent, and they're generating property taxes. So one of the things we have to be mindful of is when we get these property taxes, the government lives on property taxes and a little bit of income taxes and a little bit of motor vehicle highway taxes. We got to use those for quality of place initiatives. We got to get housing up here. We need to, like I said earlier, we need to add some more housing to make it affordable places for people to live. So we can definitely work on that. But one of the problems Richmond has is we only have a 38% job participation rate. That means 62% of the people in Richmond who are working age and capable of working choose not to work. Or they're in the gig economy and they're just doing some side work on the, not really working. So we got the city and EDC are working on some educational initiatives, and we want to restore pride to work and honor. You mentioned working extra jobs. Until this semester, I worked 4 jobs this year. Because I like a certain quality of life. Work in the construction industry, city council, RP&L board, and teaching for a university on the side. So it's very important to me to generate revenue for the lifestyle you want. What we got to do is help some of these young people appreciate the fact that you can earn a better income and have a better quality of life. So back to all these tax dollars coming in. Now, we don't get a lot of tax dollars from some of them because we created special districts to capture them and pay for bonds. But RP&L built that new substation out on Midwest Industrial Park Phase 3. Once Liberation Labs and Viking come in, it'll be just about be full, so we got to think about that again. With Liberation Labs, the sewer system will be at capacity, over capacity, so we've got to figure out a way to expand the sewer system. That's absolutely true. Liberation Labs is going to have jobs that start at $35 an hour, so those are great jobs. So every job, if we can get people to live here, we can capture the tax dollars from their income tax, and that's extremely helpful. Right now, we can capture property taxes and business personal property tax on the equipment in those plants, and that's how cities like Richmond function.
Yep. Thank you.
Can I offer a quick aside here?
Certainly.
I want to go back to Howard's comment. Howard, I have so much. I only just met you for the first time yesterday, actually, but we get along well, and I have so much appreciation for your background and your service. But I always have to take issue with the statement that the young people leave because there's nothing here for them. As mayor, if this is the job you want, you're not just a protector of the city, you're also the core cheerleader of a city. And I sit here flanked by individuals. Paul went to the same high school I went to. We're not too far apart in age. Right. And Ron, I don't know if you're a lifer here, or if you moved here at some point.
The house I was born in on South 13th and Warren is still there.
So these are people that have lived here, myself included, that have made great lives for ourselves in a very beautiful city. And so I don't feel as though my career and everything that led me to become mayor to foster and care for my city was that I got stuck here. I had a lot of friends that moved away, but I believed in this place, and I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity. I want to bring more, but I just always, as the mayor, as an 8-year mayor and somebody that fights every day for this city, I just have to take issue with there's nothing here for them. There's a lot here, and especially in a digital economy, there's a lot here. It's a beautiful, amazing city full of opportunity with more on the way, and I just think that if we foster that the right way and cheerlead it and push for it, it's going to get even bigger and better.
Well, that's why I moved back here.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a great city too, and the people are great. I mean, I've met a lot of wonderful people, including all the people in this room. Yeah. But still, I mean, if you're losing population, are you trying to gain the population from outside, or are you trying to build the population from inside? If the population keeps coming down, if we have a sustainable population of our own, you would think that the population would stay the same or get bigger. It hasn't. So those people are going somewhere. I don't know where they're going, but they're not staying here. They're either going to Indianapolis or Dayton, Inglewood, someplace, but they're not staying here.
May I add to that for our viewers?
I would love them to stay here.
If I'm correct, I believe 4,000 people a day come into Richmond to work that live outside of Richmond, correct? One of the things that's going to be amazing, and you, Dave, even talked about this, I think the Gorge Activation Project, our single largest natural resource, the gorge that runs through downtown, the center of the town, the heart of the town, taking out the Weir Dam, finally being able to bring kayaking and canoeing. That's only possible because we worked really hard over the last 20 years to separate the stormwater from the sanitary water. So we no longer dump sanitary water into the river. So now it's safe to kayak and canoe. I think that's going to be huge. Zip lines, everything that's going to happen there. Young families, and my friends included, that go down to Brookville in the summer and do that canoeing and kayaking will finally be able to do it here. I think that's going to be huge. Getting the housing back will be huge. And I remember when we did the Jack Elstro Park, the Stellar Park, so many people were opposed to it. We broke ground on it. We're going to turn this parking lot into a park. And it's one of our most used parks now. So one of the things that mayors will face is we'll face a lot of opposition from the public who may not have the vision like we had for that Jack Elstro Park, that Stellar Park. But it's huge. Young people use it all the time, not just a splash pad, but as a music venue. The food trucks are there, the farmers market, number 3 in the state, correct? So we are doing a lot of amazing things.
Yep.
Yeah,
And we have a lot of potential.
Yeah.
I agree with you on all that. I've heard people talk about, I'm going to go out of town and to a concert. And they go to these concerts that are 5,000 or 10,000 people. We have places to have concerts, but they're 1,000, maybe 2,000 people. Why can't we do something at Glenn Miller Park on that Roosevelt Hill?
That's perfect.
Take
I agree.
that bandstand they have, put in a nice dressing area and rooms and a great sound system, level out some of that ground, make it more of a bowl, maybe put some permanent seating down there.
These are all great
have
ideas.
all those
and there's
stuff
great
down
projects,
there.
and there's great projects going in and around Richmond. And like I said, I'm not running for mayor, but I chose to live here as well. Love the
Yeah.
city, love what's going on.
I do too.
Made a good living, raised
Yeah,
2 children. But I believe we do have a viewer question.
We do.
So-
We do. We're halfway through our show,
Great.
gentlemen. It's going quickly, and so we want to keep moving along. And we do have viewers that are asking questions. So on the screen now, you can see if using the COVID help funds for new projects, how will they be funded when those monies are no longer available? So I'm going to Ron?
That's a great question. The way you use non-recurring dollars is for one-time projects. And some of the one-time projects, as we revitalize the downtown area, I want to quickly turn those properties back into private investors' hands. So the city, some developers told me, and I totally agree with them, such as the old Reedmore property. The city chose to save that building. And it's true. The city's probably going to have to spend $600,000 to fix that building, and at the end, it's going to be worth $300,000. And that's okay, because the city has to make some tough decisions. We want to save this building or not that building. But the benefit is you turn them over and you get them out of the city's hands as quickly as possible into private hands. So these are just one-time projects that really won't require any sustainable funds, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to use that COVID money to have sustainable projects. I mean, if we're going to put money into this thing, how's it going to, self-perpetuate and keep going, that we don't have to keep coming back and put more and more dollars into it. And I agree with you about, hey, those properties, I've heard 300, we have over 300 properties that belong to the city of Richmond. Now, I'm not saying they're rentals or anything like that, but they're properties that are just there and we own them and nothing's happening with them. We should not be in what I would say is the real estate business. We need to get those things turned over just as quickly as possible and let somebody give us some tax revenue from those properties.
Great.
So I would have a sustainable projects. If you're going to demolition the house, let's go ahead and do it, but have something in mind that you're going to get it back out there so you can get the tax dollars back out of it.
Thank you. David?
Yes, and as far as the city properties, one potential thing to look into is potentially leasing the properties to create reoccurring revenue as opposed to selling. Now, sometimes it might be in our best interest to sell a property if that's where we're wanting to head to. But I think it's most important to take the feedback from the citizens to get their input first so I can make a decision with them as opposed to for them.
Thank you. Dave?
Sure, thank you. First of all, coming back to Howard's comment there, we don't own 300 properties. I don't know who
Okay,
gave
I'm
you that
glad to hear
information.
that.
Incorrect.
Glad to hear
And then
it.
coming back to Ron's comment, he was talking about my Read More project and what's called Place. That's a program that I invented, and I've gone to several cities and shown other municipalities how to do that exact same work. And it's been really exciting. And yes, the whole point of the Place program, kind of getting away from the question for 1 second, is to knock down that barrier for our entrepreneurs so we can put locally owned businesses back in these buildings. Because that's our aspiration. That's what we want to see. And Ron was talking about how successful that's been so far and how successful it's going to be. So coming back to where I think the viewer was asking, because we were talking earlier about the strategic investment plan and all the projects, I think the viewer is asking if you're using the COVID dollars or American Rescue Plan, how are those sustainable? And so that's in twofold. One is those programs and projects are set up in a way that they're either self-sustaining through revenue or they're sustained through the partnerships that come about in starting up the project. The second part is there's not money being put toward salaries and costs of paying somebody per hour to run any of them if they need day-to-day operation. It's just to start them up so they can become self-sustaining in other methods after they're going. So it's really an infusion of dollars to get things moving, to work as a catalyst, not to be a trickle-in dollar in perpetuity moving forward.
Thank you. We've talked about housing, and we do have, Richmond faces a housing shortfall. So studies show that, and this is particular in the mid-entry level home areas, what role does the city have, if any, in assisting developers with housing infrastructure? And David, I'm going to start with you.
Well, let's see here. Sorry, I have a bunch of notes in front of me to kind of keep track of all my ideas and stuff. So if I went into infrastructure, well, with the infrastructure, you said in regards to the housing.
In regards to housing, because land development is expensive. So what role, if any, would Richmond play in that?
Well, they have, I would say, as far as, well, I guess when it comes to, property taxes and different things, but as far as this question goes, I would probably have to honestly say I need to do more research into it to accurately answer your question, to know what truly role they do play in without me just guessing or saying just anything up here. So that would have to be my answer.
Okay. Dave, I'm going to bounce this over to you.
Sure, yeah, there's a few different roles that the city can play in spring housing, and we're working on a lot of those fronts right now. We are working, as I've said a few times here, and you'll probably be hearing me say it a lot more over the next few weeks. We're very close to landing the largest investment in downtown history and providing housing there. But that's going to be apartment type living. Now we know that we need single family housing as well, and how do we help those developers? So just a couple of things that we can do. The Indiana legislature has given us the toolkit to create a TIF area for that if we so choose. If that's one way that we can assist with the funding, we can carve out a TIF district, take a snapshot of the assessed value of that land as it sits before it's developed, then let the developer develop the land, do the assessed value after, and then the incremental value of that tax assessment would then go into redevelopment commission so that they can repay a bond if they had to take that out. The city can do infrastructure work under that. We can contribute that if it's correct for the project. So we can put in drainage areas and things like that, or put the roads in. That may be something that we can or cannot cash flow at the time. So it could be that the city could front a bond to do all the infrastructure work. Now, the catch there is, and where that gets complicated, because we've been down that road, is if we do that, then all of the work has to be completed in 36 months. So the developer would then have to be ready to complete all of the work on top of the infrastructure put under the ground if we went that route. So there are a lot of different ways the city can be at the table, and we have been at the table, and that's what's gotten us as far as we are in these projects. And so I would say the single family housing is moving a little slower. It's been a little more complicated to sit at the table with developers and try to balance their ability to develop with our ability to add infrastructure. That's been a complicated discussion. But the conversation around apartment living, especially as it pertains to downtown, has been able to move very quickly, and we're very, very close to making a formal and an exciting announcement on that one in the near future.
Thank you.
Good deal.
Howard.
Well, that infrastructure stuff is great in the beginning. It gets people in there, it gets the taxes, and what's going to happen if you're not careful and you develop too much of that, the next thing you know, 10, 15, 20 years from now, you've got these roads that need to be repaired, and the taxes that are coming from the people along those roads are not going to pay for that repair to put in a new road again. So if you get too sprawled out, you're just creating a problem for yourself later down the road. So I would try to do something more in town. Again, if we have all these blighted houses and we're boarding up things, if we can get developers to come in there, make some nice housing, mid-level prices, things like that, in the long run, I think we'll be better off. Now, I can sit here and say that's such an easy job, but it's not. But that's where my emphasis would go if we do want to get developers to make a new sprawling complex. I say you just have to be very careful about that. I think you're just setting yourself up possibly for a long-term problem.
Okay. Ron, I'll round it out.
Housing issues in cities like Richmond, I think, are best suited through public-private partnerships, where the city is able to come in and build the infrastructure and provide that. So, for example, the city of Richmond, we own the electric utility, we own the sewer utility, the streets. We don't own the water and the gas, so I'm not sure how that would pan out if we were building a new housing subdivision, but we could certainly help out with those aspects of it. Residential TIF is a possibility. I know it's getting some pushback in some other counties right now, so we'll watch what other people do. But one of the things Richmond does well is that we try to not mimic, but we try to find best practices. So we've taken a lot of cues from the city of Hamilton. City of Hamilton, what they did with their Elder Burma building, we bought our Elder Burma building back for $300,000 several years ago, and that was the right thing to do before it fell into out of state or out of town hands and nothing happened with it. So we're now with a third developer. The first developer, which was the first plan I really loved, what was commercial on the first floor, then apartments. That didn't pan out. And the next one was just refurbishing for apartments. That didn't pan out. So this last developer is raised the building, which is poured concrete, and it's hard to remodel. They've realized that, and putting these market rate apartments. So we've already recreated a TIF district just for that. The Elder Burma building and those two parking lots are now in a special TIF district. So I think we're this close to winning with that developer and getting a bunch of market rate apartments downtown. But these are public-private partnerships. The public, the government can't do it by themselves, and the developer can't afford to do it by themselves. So that's why we have to come together at the table and work together and make these things work. But some of the stuff on infrastructure that gets really expensive, like you mentioned, maybe getting a bond. So there'll come a time when, do we have enough money to put that sewer in? If we don't, how do we pay for it? And we have to figure that out. If we can pay for it, if the city can pay for a lot of that infrastructure that goes in a new housing division, that'll lower the costs of houses, make them more affordable for the residents. Some people argue that the city shouldn't do that because it increases profits for the developer, but not necessarily. It lowers the final cost to the homeowner and makes those homes more affordable. That's my goal.
So we have a follow-up question from one of our viewers, so we'll put that up on the screen for you. The first part has already been answered by all of you. What are your plans for housing? But the second part, as well as enforcing codes for all the landlords and improving property in Richmond. So I'm going to, Ron, stay right here with you and let you answer that before we circle back around.
Mayor Dave Snow created the Code Enforcement Department. So we have some men and trucks and some equipment, and they go around and try to clean up some areas. I think they could do better. I think they could be re-envisioned. I think there's a lot of things we could do better there. I am not interested in a Bloomington-style rental ordinance that says You have to, city has to inspect every house or apartment when someone moves out for a large fee, because that will just add a cost to our good landlords that they don't need. We do have some problem landlords that we need to control, so we need to work closely with the good landlords, and we need to work even more closely with the landlords who are not providing standard housing. One problem with that is it falls under the Wayne County Health Department, not necessarily the city, to inspect these homes for the health code violations. So we need to continue to work well with the county department on that too. And that's where the city and county can still collaborate even better together, is ensuring quality and safe housing.
Dave?
Sure. As Ron stated, created the code enforcement department. They've really done a fantastic job of enforcing the city code. So there's a few things to unpack here. First of all, we have a very small group of landlords that work to sort of create a bucket of all the landlords are bad people. It's just not the case. The vast majority of landlords in our community are good, responsible business people. We have a handful of irresponsible landlords that we deal with on a regular basis, and they really create 80% of the problems, maybe even 90. So two things happen on this front. First of all, we should never, under any circumstance, whether it deals with housing or any other issue, look to alter the code or bring ordinances to council to amend that target certain individuals. Our ordinances and codes should be equitable to everybody so that everybody can live under them. That's important, number one. Number two is a lot of times you might be surprised to find out that when we get these complaints, the first thing that our code enforcement needs is permission to enter the property, to take pictures and document, and then the tenant doesn't want to allow that permission. And that becomes an issue for us again and again and again. So often we'll encourage them to contact the county and contact the health department. But this becomes a very layered issue very quickly when we have someone living in a unit that is telling us the conditions are substandard, and perhaps the landlord is someone that we deal with on a regular basis for the same issues, but then they won't grant us the permission to enter. And if we don't have permission, then we can't document the complaint to run it up the proper channels. And so it becomes a very complicated issue, and it's something we want to keep looking at, but we want to always keep an eye to the 90% of responsible landlords that we have in our community that are doing a great job, and not make everyone's life more complicated because of a small group of individuals that are choosing to operate irresponsibly.
David?
From what I have seen in the process of trying to run for mayor, going door to door, I've heard heartbreaking stories from residences that lives in our public housing, for example, of how, from what they have told me, is they have reached out to housing authority but have been threatened. Now, whether or not those statements are true or not, I can't adequately say because I don't truly know, but that is concerning from the things I do hear. And from my understanding is they would complain, and then some of them would stop making complaints because threats of being kicked out of their homes. There's other landlords in our city, not all of them, but some that choose to not do improvements to their apartments and stuff. And I think we need to find new ways to helping those citizens so they know that they can reach out and know that something's going to be done. Not saying that it isn't being done, but just from what people have told me directly, I think there could be more improvements in it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Howard?
Well, yeah, I think the city should be a facilitator in getting things done. We need somebody that's going to go around and check on this stuff and try to correct it. But when that fails, I think we have to put every resource we can summon against those people that aren't going to comply, don't want to comply, aren't willing to comply. But we need to do something about it. The buildings that are empty, we have to make sure there are no squatters in there. That building might be fine when it first goes empty, but if you get squatters in there and you have open windows and the rain comes in all the time, that building's going to be unusable pretty soon. So again, I think we need to get on it more, keep up with it more, press forward on it, not let that stuff fester. Get rid of it, do something about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul?
Yep, we have another viewer question that came in, and this revolves around the edit tax dollars and the EDC. So currently, the EDC is funded through EDIT, Economic Development Income Taxes. Would you continue this model, and why? I mean, I think the EDC is 100% funded by EDIT dollars. So the question is, would you continue this model, and why? So, let me see.
I'll go.
Go ahead.
If that's okay.
Yep, that's fine, absolutely.
And-
I'll take a volunteer.
In all the years I've been council's liaison to EDC, we have talked about and we looked at other cities. I believe Columbus, Indiana is one of them, where it's a public-private partnership. One of the issues we have with that, though, is when you do send tax dollars to an economic development corporation, then they're bound by state laws to do certain things, to have open public forums and be totally transparent about what they do because they're spending tax dollars. When you mix in private dollars, you lose a little bit of that transparency, and maybe you have a benefit because with the private tax dollars there can be greater tax dollars, but one of the problems you might have, one of the things we think about is, will this private tax dollar or private person investing in an economic development corporation get projects they want finished instead of what necessarily benefits the public? So the model has been working for a long time now. I haven't seen a reason, even after looking at other cities with their mix, for any reason to change it. It's a fair program. It's what, 1% of your tax dollars if you live in Richmond, Wayne County. The city spends half of its edit dollars to the EDC. The county sends half its edit dollars to EDC. City keeps the rest, county keeps the rest. Anything the EDC doesn't use goes in a cumulative fund, and that cumulative fund actually pays for some really nice projects. We've been very successful with that. So I have no reason at this moment to change it.
Okay. Do we have another volunteer?
Oh, sure, I'm happy to jump in next. When I continue the current contribution of edit tax into consolidated edit, absolutely. The partnership has been tremendous, and what we get as a city from that contribution into consolidated edit is well worth that partnership and the agreement that we have. And so we will be going before County Council in the very near future, myself and several others, to ask for dollars out of that consolidated edit fund to come back to the city for the apartment project that we're talking about in downtown. So there's a lot of symbiosis that happens within that contribution. And as mayor of the city, I'm not a mayor that sees Richmond as a silo. I think Richmond's success, speaking of symbiosis, is symbiotic with the success of Cambridge City and the success of Hagerstown and the success of Centerville. Because I think there are a lot of people that would move from different parts of this country and would love to live in Cambridge City. And they will still come to Richmond and spend money and shop and eat and maybe even work, or maybe their job is remote and they'll just enjoy recreation in Richmond. So I see a tremendous amount of value in the partnership between the city and the county, because anytime we can lift Wayne County as a whole, we're lifting Richmond right along with it. So it's a long-winded way, and I'm a verbose guy, but it's a long-winded way of saying absolutely I would continue that moving forward.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. David?
Well, I'm not fully familiar with the entire process, but I would have to say I would take the advice of the citizens of what the best move to do, because I want their input put first, and that's why I revert back to making decisions with them as opposed to for them, by the people, for the people. And so I would ask their input of what they think is best. That way we have complete transparency, and then make an informed decision after.
All right. Thank you.
Could you tell me the question again?
Yeah, it's talking about the edit tax dollars that are used to fund the EDC, and would the city continue to support that model?
Yeah, I think they should. It seems like they've been doing a good job. The mayor has projects that he wants to do, and the council thinks they should do them. Why not? I mean, you've got to do something with that money, so if they can work together and get those things done, you bet. I'd go for it.
All right. Thank you.
So there's been a recurring question that has come up in other election seasons as well, but it's come back up again. So I wanted to, it is on the list. Regarding the 2 Mile Fringe, What are your thoughts about annexation, and how does that fit into the community development and population growth? So I'm going to start with you, Howard, on this
Okay.
one.
Yeah, I saw that. I even, when I was trying to get my petition to get on the ballot, I went out to the 2 Mile Fringe and I was quickly informed, sorry, can't sign because we're not in the city. We don't vote with the city stuff. So I started looking at it and I'm saying, this is insane. These people get our fire department, they get the police stuff, right? Why are they outside the city? That's just another tax revenue that when it comes into them, we can help them out and they can help the city out at the same time. So I'm all in favor of getting the fringe into the city just as soon as possible. I would go out there and canvass those people and tell them what a good deal it's going to be and get them on board to come in, and whoever I need to talk to get that to happen, I would do that. If it were me.
Thank you. Ron?
Our nation is founded on the idea of no taxation without representation. So people living in the 2 Mile Fringe pay some city taxes, but not all city taxes. So they don't pay for everything. They get a few amenities and they pay for those taxes. So their tax rate is not the same as a civil city in the center of Richmond. The state law was changed a few years ago. We just can't go out and annex them. They would have to say, more than 50% have to say we want to be annexed, and I would certainly be open to that idea because I hear from a lot of them, they want to vote in city elections. And I told them move into the city limits, and you can, but that doesn't usually work. So there is a process where if they really want to be part of the city, we can make that happen. They would pay full city taxes and they would get to vote in city elections. But right now, because they don't, they vote in the county's elections, the state and federal, and because that's where their taxes, most of their tax dollars go. And that's the right way, that's the way it should be done.
Great. David?
I think it needs to be expanded. I think if you have a Richmond address, you should be allowed to vote in the Richmond elections. And I think it needs to have an expansion. But above all, I think it's important to get the aspect of the citizens themselves to see if that is something that is best for overall. And if everyone came to agreement on such, then we proceed that way.
Thank you. Dave?
Sure. It is a very cyclical discussion. Not only does it come up at election time, but the general opinion of whether or not annexation should happen tends to cycle as well. The individuals that live there do enjoy a tax benefit. And so usually during an election season, when individuals want to be able to vote in the city election to have a decision about some of the services they receive, there's a desire to want to be a part of the voting system. You get 2 years past election time, midway into the election cycle, and you'll find most individuals say, I don't want my taxes raised up into the city level to be a part of all city services. So it's very cyclical. In a forum like this, where we are all given 2 minutes to respond, it's very easy to oversimplify what is otherwise a very complicated issue. Richmond is a Class 2 city in the state of Indiana. We're going to have a 2 Mile Fringe, whether it's the one that's designated now or the one that could be pushed out if that portion was annexed. Those people would have to make the decision that they would want to come into the city. It would come with both good and bad, because it would come with a slight uptick in population, but it would come with an increase in services because those individuals don't pay taxes on every city service. So it would have to be a real balancing act, and there'd have to be a deep financial study done to see if the city would get a financial benefit or see a financial decline taking that extra swath of land on and those residents. And then they would have to decide whether or not that's something they wanted to do. And I think their decision would differ based on perhaps when you asked. So it's a very complicated matter, and it tends to cycle in and out. I've been mayor for 8 years, and I've seen the conversation sort of change several times in waves since I've been here. So I'm always interested in continuing to look at it. If people that live in that area would like to come together and decide to be a part of Richmond proper and extend those city limits, that would be great if it's a financial benefit to the city and we can properly serve everyone without seeing a financial deficit in the long run. So it's something we have to keep exploring.
Okay, thank you. Next question is about road construction, and not necessarily through Richmond, but around Richmond and the Revive I-70 project.
Awesome.
So what the Revive I-70 project is going to do is going to take I-70 from 1 all the way to the state line, make it 3 lanes going east and west, as well as redoing the interchanges. So how do you see that impacting the city of Richmond? Positively, negatively? So Howard, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, I think it's a positive thing. You go out there and drive on that, and it's like you're getting run over with all the semis going back and forth around there. So I think it'll help Richmond. A small aspect of the thing that I'd like to see is those roundabouts out there. You talk to somebody in Richmond about roundabouts, it's like, are you insane? They don't like roundabouts. But I personally like them. They keep traffic moving. So when they do that intersection there, I think people will get used to it. And if I were mayor, I would try and push to get the roundabouts here in the city. I mean, if you go down to the depot area and set at that light that goes into Fort Wayne, I've sat at that light. There's nobody there. There's nobody over here. There's nobody there. And there's nobody here. And I'm just sitting at the light, ready to go ahead to Fort Wayne Avenue. And I sat there for the 2-minute time or however they've got those lights timed out. If they had a roundabout there, I could have just gone skirted right through and gone right on and been on about my business. And that's the same thing with the railroad tracks down there. You have people coming to those stop signs, and those people coming up there from the bridge down there and farther north, one after the other. You can't get out of that one stop sign there. So that's another roundabout area. There are several roundabout areas that could come to Richmond and move traffic along. Now I know that's off of the topic a little bit, but I-70, yes, we need the 3 lanes through there, and I don't think it's going to hurt Richmond one little bit, and it might make it easier to get off the interchange there when you're coming from Dayton without getting run over by the person behind you. That interchange is dangerous.
Dave, talk about the impact that Revive I-70 is going to
Yeah,
have
oh
to
man, the
Richmond.
Revive I-70 project. This is an investment we've been waiting on and have been talking about for a long time. We have had countless meetings about how do we make these interchanges so much better and more welcoming to the people that are coming off of I-70. And we were really trying to take it in a piecemeal form, you know, because as city government, we can't invest in the whole thing all at once. And then NDOT comes along and says, we're doing this multi-year project and investing hundreds of millions of dollars into all this, and I just couldn't be more happy. So you're finally going to see that welcoming environment to capture these people off of I-70 into Richmond the way that we've always wanted to see it. And so there's some really exciting architectural pieces, some really exciting landscape pieces, some really exciting welcoming aspects that are going to go into this. And right now we're just in the planning phases of how great we want this to look. You know, this couples into what I was talking about earlier with all of this investment that's coming into our city. You know, that's been the most important thing to me. Because I believe in Richmond, I want us to get every dollar available. And I realize that some of the construction, it's annoying and it's frustrating. It's frustrating for me too. But I'm not going to let us miss a single dollar. And so we're going to look back on this era at some point, you know, maybe 15 years from now and say, look at all the money that poured into our city all at once. You know, $92 million in our streets, a $21 million new bridge, and I can't even give you the total price tag on this Revive I-70 project because it's huge. So we are going to look beautiful and amazing, and Revive's a good word for it because we're going to look revived when it's all said and done. So I just couldn't be more excited about it.
Yeah. Ron?
Good deal. I am just stoked. I'm excited about the Revive I-70 project. For a decade or so, if you can envision Indianapolis and 465, the circle around it, you've seen from Indianapolis coming out through Hancock County, they've already made that into 6 lanes and it's industrial parks. If you follow the economists, Michael Hicks from Ball State and other economists around the state, you would have read some of their reports that this is the next industrial corridor for the state of Indiana. From Indianapolis to Richmond is our industrial park corridor. That they can't go south because it's already too built up with housing. They can't go north, too built up with housing. Can't go west because they eventually run into the Amex coal mine. So this is the only way Indiana is going to build industrial parks is to connect Indianapolis to Richmond. In the next 20 years, it's going to happen. So the reason I'm stoked is because for a decade, they've been making I-76 lanes from Indianapolis out, Hancock County out, and I was worried they were going to keep doing that and never get to Wayne County. So they're stopping, and now they're going to come from Ohio line, 22 miles in, and it's just going to be awesome. I talked to the project manager of this project, and I said, you know, when you go into Ohio, you see this arch, and they have this cool, beautiful arch. It is time for Richmond and Indiana to have a Crossroads of America something. When they rebuild that Highway 40 interchange, it's time the city can partner with them and INDOT to build something beautiful that says, welcome to the Crossroads of America, Indiana, and also welcome to Richmond. Pull in and come to our wonderful restaurants and shops as a place to stay. You know, Greenfield did that with those big LED pillars at their cost there in Hancock
Those are
County.
cool.
But I want more signage that says, this is Richmond, you got to stop here and check us out. I'm stoked. I can't wait.
It's already in our plans. by
I
the
can't
way.
wait. I know.
It's already there.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
Can I-
David.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go
Oh,
ahead.
yeah,
David.
and then,
I'm sorry.
then we'll follow up.
Yes, I think it's going to be great. One thing, though, I think is kind of concerning is when it comes to traffic congestion, the semis. I kind of feel like in some ways maybe 70 should designate semis to one side of the road, the far lane, and have the cars on this lane. Because after all, the semis do create wear and tear. And also some people, when they're getting on the interstate, you have a lot of semis. Some people doesn't like doing that because, you know, the dangers involved with semis and cars. I think if we designated all the semis to one side of the road and all the cars on the other side, we could create a better flow of traffic, unless, of course, the semis exiting, then approach the right lane, but for the most part, keep them to the left to keep traffic moving more smoothly.
Great.
Yeah. Howard, you had a
Yeah,
follow
I had a
up?
little, it's, has to deal with the intersection out there, but it's also a little bit of a side, if that's okay.
Yep.
The bike people have proposed to NDOT out there, I think, to also put a bike area out through there. And that's looking ahead, because maybe that bike path will extend up through the grass area all the way up into Richmond and connect with other trails in the future. So I'll put in a little plug for the bike people to maybe go ahead with the bike path. Now, I know the bike path downtown is not all that popular, okay? Because most people you talk to say, I never see anybody on it. But there are people that use the bike path, and eventually that could be a great thing to have that bike path going all the way from out there at 70, take you all the way through town, all the way out to the edge of town over to Centerville.
So we have just a few minutes left, and we're going to wrap up the show. I'm sorry to those of you that have posed questions that we haven't gotten to. 90 minutes goes really quickly when we start talking about issues that are important to our community. So we want to give each of you a moment to make brief closing remarks. We're going to give you each about a minute. So tell us what you wanted to say that maybe you didn't have a chance to say tonight, and if you can make it brief, then we'll wrap up for this evening. David?
I just want to say that I want to work hard to do everything right by the citizens. I want to listen to all your concerns, make decisions with you, not for you. And after this all concludes, I will graciously post on my Facebook all my outlines, plans I haven't got a chance to disclose this evening during this forum. I do appreciate all of you for tuning in, and we'll see what happens on Election Day.
Great. 1 minute. Dave?
Sure. Well, thank you for staying engaged through this entire program and just staying engaged throughout the election cycle. You know, you as the voter have an important decision to make. You have one important task, and that's to get not only yourself but others to the polls, because we should see a record turnout in our elections. But your decision, when you go into the poll and you have the list of names in front of you in the voting booth, you have to ask yourself, is it time for a reset of my city government? And you look back at COVID, when we lived through that and saw a global shutdown, you saw no delay in Richmond city services. And today, as I sit here, you have a mayor that brought a strong vision to this city. I have fought and pushed to bring that vision to life for all of you. And it's been a lot of work. And what you've heard tonight, in contrast, is nothing opposing in any of that vision. You've heard a lot of, I'm going to continue what Dave and his team have been doing. I'm going to continue what Dave and his team. But I'm still here. I'm still fired up about this work. I'm still energized to do it. There will come a time when my time as mayor has come to an end, and then I will hand off the work that I've done. But that time is not now. Now is the time to expand on that work and keep it going. So
Thank you.
it's been a pleasure being here tonight, and thank you both for having me.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ron?
So I have to ask a question. Are you happy with the condition of Richmond after Dave's 8 years of running City Hall? If not, I think the choice is clear. I look forward to serving as Richmond's next mayor. I look forward to restoring civic pride and making Richmond, Indiana a place where people want to live and to work. I look forward to working together with you. I think together we have a brilliant future ahead of us. Thank you for your vote.
Great, thank you.
Hey, I get to
Howard?
go last. What a deal. I'd just like to say that as an independent candidate, many of you out there are thinking your vote is wasted if you vote for me. I'm here to tell you, if you vote for me, your vote will not be wasted. I'll do everything I can to make Richmond move ahead. Both these gentlemen are hard workers. I don't have any doubt about that. They have their best interests of Richmond in mind. But they've been here a long time, and I love the people of Richmond. It has a lot of great things, but there are things that need to be taken care of, and I think I can take care of them. One thing we didn't really talk about on the COVID thing, I don't believe in mask mandates. I don't believe in vaccination mandates. That's your individual decision. So if you want to do that, go ahead, but I don't believe them. I'm not going to force those on anybody, okay?
Okay.
So please, vote for me. There's a theory that's wasted, but I'm telling you, it's not going to be wasted. Thank
All
you.
right. Well, thank you. We appreciate you, gentlemen, all taking time to be with us tonight. We appreciate you putting your names on the ballot and the effort that you are putting forward to serve our community. Paul, it's always great to sit next to you.
Yeah, great to sit next to you as well. And I want to thank you for exercising your civic liberty to run for mayor, public office. It takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of research, and thank you for doing so.
And we want to encourage our viewers to tune in again next week, same time, same place, and we're going to hear from council candidates for Districts 2 and 5. And Paul, you're going to be right back here doing that show. So,
Yes, absolutely. Looking forward to it.
absentee voter information is on your screen. Be sure to go out and vote. Exercise your right to vote. This is what American citizenship does, and we encourage it right here in Richmond. Thank you to WCTV, to Western Wayne News, Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce, and all of you who have tuned in and been our viewers this evening. Have a great night.